All right, I believe we're recording, and let me just start by saying that this is my friend Joey here in the background, and he's only wearing the hat indoors to shoot the video, okay? Well, Joey and I got together tonight because we want to talk about my spear gun, and this here is the spear gun. It's a JBL 38 Special, and from what I understand, there's two basic ways to rig a spear gun, and that's where the shaft will stay attached to the gun when you shoot. The other option that I had available to me was for the shaft to be separated from the gun, that it would come completely free, and that it would end up in my hand attached to this nylon card. And this particular technique where the shaft flies free is called a riding rig. Anyway, we chose the riding rig for various reasons. If you run into some safety trouble, you can let go of your shaft and the fish and the shaft go away, but the gun stays with you, okay, because the gun is actually attached to the vest by this little clip. So when the shaft is freed, I can let go of the gun and I can work the fish with this handheld rope along with the cable that runs to the shaft. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and involve Joey. Joey, why don't you go ahead and ask a couple of questions that some folks might want to ask.
Alright, how far can this gun go? How many?
Well, that's measured in wraps, and the cable that's going to be going from the shaft to my hand is has 2 wraps on it. Okay, that means it goes from one end of the barrel down to the trigger mechanism, and we make 2 wraps with it, right? Round and round twice, and that's actually, on this particular operation, going to give me about a 6-foot or an 8-foot shot. Anyway, they tell me that's going to be plenty enough distance at the rig that the fish are going to come close enough, and then I'm going to have a good time. Any other questions?
How far?
50 miles out. We have this new satellite imagery system that's available to us, and it's going to show us where the blue water develops. So before we get out there and have to look around, we should have a pretty good idea of where the blue water is.
How do you set those things on the handle?
Joey's asking about these rubber straps. They're known as bands, and they're pretty powerful. And they have this little piece of stainless steel that goes from the rubber to the stainless steel. And the stainless steel, there's 3 bands on this gun, and they're going to lock in to these 3 notches. I'm going to put my hand behind it. Now, I don't know if you can see that real well, but there's 3 notches where each band's going to lock in. Now, before you start locking those bands in, you got to make sure that your shaft is locked into the trigger mechanism and that your safety is on safe, okay? I'm going to tell you, I never fired this gun before myself. I'm only working on what people told me and a lot of research on the internet. So don't try it based on what I'm telling you. Do your own research, take your own risk. I really don't know nothing yet.
Alright, how does this spear thing get hooked in there? Fish.
Joey's pointing out this fancy breakaway tip. It's got a little extra piece of cable, and the way the design of the tip is to break away from the shaft and yet hold the fish. That way, while the fish struggles and thrashes about, that your shaft doesn't take any damage, because a bent shaft is no good for use in the gun again. So when the fish is speared, a little ring is going to release these barbs, and those barbs obviously are going to stop the fish from coming off. But as the fish wiggles, the tip is going to break away from the shaft, okay, and it's going to come to a stop point. So now your fish is on the cable, and it can do its thrashing about until he's finished, and the cable is going to take less damage while the fish exhausts his energy. Any other questions, Joey?
What kind of fish are y'all looking for?
Well, there's some seasons out there shooting at these rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. There's different seasons for these fish. I think basically we're going to be looking for a red snapper, a cobie, which is also known as a lemon fish, and I think we're going to be shooting some amberjack. That's probably the three targets that are most common with the guys on the boat. I think every now and then they'll take a barracuda as well. There's a chance to shoot some triggerfish if they're big enough. Again, a lot of that's going to depend on the time of the year that we're actually out there. And there's also some restraints on how big the fish need to be before you take them. Any other questions?
What other kind of equipment is involved?
In scuba diving, there's lots of other equipment. As far as the spear gun goes, there's some different types of spear fishing where the shaft is not held in the connection to the shaft is not held in your hand. It's held onto some floats that are actually up on the surface, and that's for open water. That's some stuff that we don't do. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
All right, we want to appreciate y'all for watching. Again, don't do any of this based on what I told you. I haven't done it myself, and I don't have any real working knowledge, just some research. I'd like to thank Brother Stanley for helping me braid the ropes and pick out the cable and encouraging me to step out into this big adventure of spearfishing. Joey, the video's over. You got to take the hat off.